This is the Varla Eagle One, and although it's technically classified as a scooter, practically I classify it as a rideable honey badger. You point it in a direction, pull the throttle, and it just doesn't care. When Varla reached out to me asking if I'd like to make a video about their Eagle One scooter, my initial thoughts were, are you sure? I've scared off other scooter companies in the past by replying with brutal honesty. The majority of my audience is gas bike enthusiast, that's gas, and bike, this is a scooter, that's electric, and the road conditions around me are not exactly something that a scooter is meant to handle. I made it very clear that I'm honest with my audience and will give a true review, pointing out its features and flaws. To my surprise, they responded without hesitation, essentially saying, challenge accepted. Here's a scooter, have fun. Maybe they're on an intel gathering mission, or they have blind confidence in their product, but we're not going to pull any punches. They claim to see my videos and say they enjoy the channel, so hopefully that's true, and they know what they're getting themselves into. At first I felt kind of bad for the little scooter, being sent somewhere it doesn't belong. Like it was stuck in the middle of a custody battle between its loving, caring mother of Varla and its not-so-enthusiastic father, L.A. Hover. That all went out the window once I opened the box and realized its mother had been force-feeding it steroids its entire adolescent life. And here's going to be the steepest hill of the trip. It just doesn't care. It doesn't care at all. How anyone can get away with calling this machine a scooter is beyond me, but now that I think about it, there are motorized bikes which are practically motorcycles, so I can see where they're coming from. I fully understand that this scooter is geared towards the enthusiast market, but that doesn't mean it can't have a place in the practical world, and I want to find out just how useful this is to someone like me. So that's enough of the fluff. Let's get straight into it. Alright buddy, want to hang out while we open this box? That looks pretty well protected. Let's dig into this. So if you ever gotta unbox something like this outside, lay the box flat like this so you don't lose all your stuff in the grass. Like, what's that? That looks important. That probably shouldn't be there. That's a pretty good looking multi-tool. Even got a 10mm. Take a look at this other one real quick. Oh, you get 3. You get 4. Kind of an overlooked thing, even though that's pretty cool as a grip tape. Awesome design. I don't think I'd want to be standing on it, you know, because it's the flag. I think this one's probably going to be my favorite. The Apache one's pretty sweet. Some more bits and pieces in those compartments. Looks like we could have fit everything in this little bag, so I would have sealed it at the factory. This thing is looking way sweeter than it did in the videos and picture. Jesus, look at that axle on the front. That is beefy. That axle's like the same size as my Dual Sport. Should have a kickstand on. Yeah, on the back, on the very back. Okay. You can get a second charger for this thing to fast charge. On one charger, you're looking at 8 to 9 hours from a dead battery to a full battery. Twin chargers, 4 to 5 hours. Now, this claims to have a maximum range of 40 miles and a maximum speed of 40 miles per hour. I'm personally not really interested in the maximum speed, simply because I'm getting to the point where if I crash, things break on me, not the scooter. What I'm mostly interested in is the range. Max load capacity, 330 pounds. It says it has dual hydraulic brakes plus ABS. What I think the ABS is the regenerative braking. I don't imagine that the hydraulic brakes are ABS, but we will check that out. There we go. 21. I'm not trying to make them any tighter, I'm just trying to make sure they're not loose. Yep. All right, I believe I found where that set screw goes. There's a metal ring in here for this ignition. Regular bicycles, the right handlebar is the back brake and the left is the front brake. But it's the opposite on here. The left is our back brake and the right is our front. And damn, those are really good brakes, by the way. I decided to come over to the side of my house so I can lean on it. This will let me easily set up the controls right where I want them instead of trying to hop on and off it. Moving on to my thoughts and opinions about the Varla Eagle 1. I have 2 disclaimers for you. First, this was sent to me for free. They didn't give me any parameters on which to make videos, just to make some videos about it. So here it is. Second disclaimer, I'm a gas bike enthusiast, so there's going to be some bias. I can't help it, though I will try to be honest. The first thing to catch me off guard by far was sticker shock. With a price tag of $1,600, that's a hard pill to swallow for anyone who's not a scooter enthusiast. In future videos with the Varla Eagle 1, I'll be comparing pros and cons of scooters versus bikes, gas versus electric, but I'll go more in depth and I won't just give you the obvious answers that everybody already knows. That's a little too much for this video, so we'll stay on subject. To put this price tag in perspective for you, somebody who's just getting into the gas bike hobby can build their first motorized gas bike for about $400, including a new bike, new motor, tools, and extra hardware. These bikes will tend to reach speeds between 25 and 30 miles an hour, and they'll tend to get about 40 miles to a tank, and your range is essentially limitless as long as you have a way to refuel. Not so much for the electrics. Of course, you can build these cheaper, as low as $200 for a new bike and motor, but that's generally for somebody who already has the tools, extra hardware, and experience in the hobby to do so. New builders should not expect that price range. For scooters, however, the price range varies wildly. I noticed that a solid entry-level scooter is about $500, and the enthusiast level tends to start about the $1,500 mark. Varla's pretty smart about the way they put the Eagle 1 together. They sacrifice the quality of non-critical components while maintaining the integrity of the critical components, such as the frame and the power system. Non-critical components like the throttle and the heads-up display take a back seat. They're fine, they're adequate, but they're not ideal. I noticed the trigger on mine will tend to stick in cold weather, acting as a mechanical cruise control, which is not intended, although the scooter does have a digital cruise control, which you can play around with once you have some experience. In the heads-up display, you can navigate through something called the P settings, which allows you to really customize the characteristics of the scooter. Maximum acceleration rate, maximum speed, regenerative braking, things that go beyond the preset options that the scooter already comes with. And what I would like to see is a profile option where I can quickly hit a button to load a certain profile that I've preset for a very low power mode. That way I could let my girlfriend try it, or a younger rider who's not quite ready for the scooter as it comes from the factory. Because I found that even in economy mode, at the lowest speed setting with one wheel, if you're not ready for it, the scooter can catch you off guard and put you on your butt. It would just be a nice option to have. But you can customize it yourself. The only problem is These P settings are really difficult to remember. I actually took pictures of them with my phone, so on the fly I can make settings, because without the manual, you're not going to remember what these are. The keyed ignition system gets the job done, but it's nothing spectacular. I actually do enjoy the keyed ignition system along with the weight of the scooter. This thing's a heavy scooter, so somebody's not going to be able to just pick it up and run off with it unless they already have a vehicle to jump in. The added layer of security means I can do quick trips to the store, in and out, without worrying about somebody riding off on it. The front and rear lighting system, although bright enough to keep you safe in most situations, is not adequate for nighttime travel at anything more than 10 miles an hour. The cosmetic trim on the scooter is a bit too flashy in my opinion. I would have enjoyed a blacked out look or maybe a black and gunmetal gray look. In my opinion, the flashy design of this scooter would appeal to an audience that's a lot younger and probably can't afford this scooter, and I would have just omitted that. So if these corners are cut, where's your money going? It's going straight where I would put it, into performance and build quality. The frame and all critical components of this thing are built like a tank. It's designed to handle a heavy, full-grown adult under rough riding conditions, and it shows. I don't have any concerns of this thing falling apart while I'm riding. Power is insane. Dual 1000 watt motors is just a number in a video or on a review until you feel it in person. Any of you guys with an electric bike should have some perspective of exactly what 1000 watts plus another 1000 watts will get you. To put it to you this way, if the tires have grip, it climbs it. As long as you have traction, you're going up. It doesn't care. For the rubber, you have pneumatic street tires. Pneumatic is a bit of a trade-off. This means you can get flats, and changing a flat tire on an electric scooter from every video I've seen is not something that's going to be enjoyable. So I filled mine with slime straight away. Pneumatic does mean you're going to have an improved ride quality. It's going to be smoother, it's going to soak up more bumps, and it's just going to give the suspension that much more freedom to work with. Plus, you can change the PSI depending on whether you want to stay street at about 50 PSI or trails at about 40 to 35 PSI. That's up to you. Now, they come stock with street tires, and you can get knobbies if you're just going to be riding rough road conditions. However, I'm glad it came with the street tires because that increases your range if you're riding mostly street or hard-packed dirt roads like I plan on doing with this in future adventure videos. I didn't find it to have really any issues having grip on gravel roads. At a speed of about 20 miles an hour though. I haven't pushed this thing anywhere near what it's capable of, and I don't think I ever will. The Eagle One does have regen braking, which means as soon as you touch the brakes, the motors add resistance to recharge the battery and help save on your brake pads. By default it's set to 3, and I didn't really notice it doing anything at this level. I put mine up to 5 and noticed an immediate difference, but there's a catch. It's not dynamic. It applies all at once, and if you're not ready for it, can cause an accident. This may be safe up to speeds of about 25 miles an hour, but if you plan on going much faster, I would lower the regen braking or turn it off altogether. The other problem with it is it can fool you into thinking that your brakes are properly set up. A high value regen brake applies quite a bit of resistance, and it feels just like the brake pads. But you actually have to pull the levers in quite a bit more to engage the actual brakes themselves, and this might catch you off guard as well. For high-speed travel over 25 miles an hour, I wouldn't recommend raising the regen brake setting because it could cause a crash. I would actually lower it or turn it off completely. In this way, you have complete dynamic control over your brakes through the brake levers without any interference from the motors themselves. The Eagle One is listed as off-road capable, but this is relative. What it means is it'll go places that most other scooters won't. Don't expect to be taking this down mountain bike trails. That's just not practical. You got 10-inch tires, and although the suspension on this thing, which is absolutely amazing, does its job well, it has its limits. What you'll find, like me, is that when you see a grass field off the side of the road, you'll cut right through it without any problems. You'll look for any little bits of rough terrain along your daily driving path just as an excuse to have some fun, and it does that really well. As I mentioned earlier, as long as the tires have grip, it just goes through anything. Because I don't have anything to compare this to, I don't know if it's the case on other electric bikes and scooters, but something I really love about the Eagle One is its dynamic power delivery system. The throttle does not actually control how much power is given to the motors, it controls the set speed of the vehicle itself. Let me give you an example. The dynamic power system is always working by default no matter what power setting you're in, whether it's the slowest or the fastest, and whether or not you have economy mode turned on or off. But for this example, we'll use the worst case scenario. Let's say you're at the lowest speed setting of 1, which tops out at 20 miles an hour, and you have economy mode turned on, which lowers it to 15 miles an hour. You've been cruising around at full throttle holding a steady 15 miles an hour your entire trip, but then you come up to an unexpected steep hill or some really loose terrain which would normally bog you down. You don't have to play with the power settings or even do anything to the throttle. You simply hold it as you have been and it will continue to apply more and more torque to the motors because at any given time, full power is always available to the motors to hold your steady speed. It will climb that hill no matter how steep it gets at 15 miles an hour and you don't even have to do a thing. This really shines when you're in really rough terrain at slow speeds. You don't have to play around with the throttle, it's one less thing to think about. All you have to do is negotiate the terrain. It claims to have an IP54 waterproof rating. Now correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I've always looked at this as a water resistant rating and not waterproof. To me, waterproof means I can throw it in a swimming pool and it'll survive. I don't recommend throwing this in a swimming pool because I don't think it will survive. I've looked at this as you can get rained on, splashed with a puddle, and it'll do just fine. But if you drive through a 2-foot puddle fully submerging the body of the scooter, I wouldn't expect it to live. Because the Eagle One encourages you to take paths which you don't normally take, I found myself being saved by the suspension system already at least once, when I hit a rather large pothole on a road I don't normally take. The front tire caught it, the swing arm did its job. Close to maxed out, but it did its job. You hear in pretty much every video about this scooter people complimenting the suspension system for good reason. It's like being on a boat in the ocean. Speed bumps, potholes, rough rocks in the road, it just goes over it smooth and fluid. I don't know how they're able to engineer this so well, but they did their job. And it's customizable. Although the stock factory settings are perfect in my opinion, if you're a heavier individual, you can get more out of it. To visualize it as simply as I can, it makes the tires feel a lot bigger than they actually are. Now to answer the question that many of you have been waiting for. If Varla never sent me the Eagle One, would I have considered purchasing it on my own? I'm going to answer this question with a simple yes or no, and I'm going to explain my answer. I'm also going to offer up a bit of advice for Varla for whatever it's worth. Obviously, I don't run a business, so I don't know if this advice is valuable or not. No. Had Varla never sent me this scooter, I would have never considered purchasing it, because I didn't know anything about scooters or what they're capable of. I would have looked at the price tag, scoffed, and moved on to other alternatives. But now, after having ridden the Eagle One and knowing exactly what it's capable of and just how convenient it is to get on and ride if one of my bikes is broken and I don't feel like unlocking the mountain of other bikes, if it disappeared tomorrow, yes, I would be on Varla's website to buy another one, but only because I now know what it's capable of. I didn't have that knowledge before, and neither do most people. But if you're really looking to expand your audience and get more people into the scooter market, I would highly suggest putting an entry-level option on your website. I notice you have the Pegasus at about $1,000. That's a beautiful scooter, by the way. I love the design. And then you have the Varla Eagle One, which is definitely not entry-level. And nobody who has never ridden a scooter before is going to really consider something at that price range. However, if you offered an entry-level scooter around $500 to $600, that's definitely something that's more appealing to the audience outside of the scooter market. A lot more of my viewers would probably be interested in a $500 to $600 scooter than they would be a $1,600 scooter because, like me, they don't know about scooters, and to get into the hobby they might want to just get their feet wet with something cheaper. I would recommend something built well and reliable, doesn't have to be crazy powerful or fast, decent range, and not a whole bunch of flash. And that's exactly how most people get into hobbies. They start cheap, see if they like it, and then they start looking at the enthusiast level equipment. Best way to grow your audience and potential buyers, in my opinion. That's how it started with motorized bikes. My first build was super budget. Cheap bike, cheap motor, and now I've spent way too much money on motorized bike stuff because I'm hooked. You gotta hook 'em. Anyways, I hope you guys got some useful information out of today's video, and until next time, ride safe.